Ladies and gentlemen, they always say be careful about the quiet ones. Please welcome the film's producer, Simon Oakes, and its stars, Jared Harris and Sam Claflin. Gentlemen, welcome. Take a seat. That was all just for you, Simon. They were only screaming for you, sir. Welcome to the Apple Store, gentlemen. First of all, we just saw the trailer, and it is bloomin' scary. Let's be fair, it's a bloomin' scary. It says at the beginning of the trailer it's inspired by actual events. Is that one of the things that makes an audience go, wow, I know I'm in for a bit of a thrill ride? Because when there's an element of depth and truth in it, somehow it adds some gravitas to any good chiller.
Yeah, I think so. I think the fact that it is based on true events that we know happened, I think that adds a thrill to it. And I think it's great for marketing the movie, but it's also great for John and the team and the writers involved. So yeah, I think it adds a certain sort of twist to it, for sure.
How aware were you of the actual events? Did you kind of know much about this story, gentlemen, when you kind of came on board? Did you know anything about the original stories?
There's a book called Finding Philip that I read that Aaron based the screenplay on. I read that, which was really interesting because it was a genuine experiment to do what the character tries to do in the movie, which was to replicate supernatural or paranormal events from human agency rather than supernatural agency, and they were successful. But the sort of vital difference was that in the real experiment, the person who was running it, his job was to make sure that nothing sinister or untoward happened, and he would end the sessions when something unpleasant started to happen. And of course, in our story, they put a completely unreliable person like myself in charge of the experiment to make sure that nasty things do happen.
Yeah, and they do. Let's be fair. Was that something that attracted you, Sam, to when you read the script? You sort of go, well, this is... Because it is a chiller movie that we haven't really seen before. It does go in a different direction to any other horror, for lack of a better word, than we've seen.
I mean, yeah, for me, what I really enjoyed about the script was that it was set in the 70s, so it was set in the past, and something that I really, really like and enjoy about like films set in that era is that we don't have the technology and the connection to the real world that we have now. You couldn't get on your phone and tweet, "Oh my God, there's a ghost in the house," Whereas, and I enjoy the fact that it is so simple and so kind of minimalistic, in that sense. Equally, I found that every character in it was very real and believable, and the whole situation was believable. I mean, the fact that it is based on true events does sort of fill you with some sort of knowledge and safety that it is something that can happen. I mean, not necessarily the supernatural part of it necessarily. I mean, I'm personally a non-believer, but it can happen, and people have had experiences similar, and I think that makes for a more interesting film. So,
non-believer?
No, I'm a believer. No, I think it's the other thing about
He's
it was
the president of Hammer. Of course, he has to be.
Yeah, I was going to say this is the man.
That sounds like a trick. Sounds like a trick question to me.
That runs the studio. If he doesn't believe, none of us should.
No, I definitely believe. No, listen. I think also the thing that attracted us, and I'm sure I know Sam and John over there, the director John Pogue and Jared, was the fact that in the early 70s, all those urban myth movies like The Omen and The Exorcist really changed the way people saw the genre. And certainly for Hammer to come back, besides some other pictures we've made that you know about, this was a sort of a real return to sort of a special period of genre movies. So that was very cool.
One thing that's also really clever about this film is it doesn't rely on any kind of shock gore, which horror movies seem to have taken a vicious turn for over the last kind of 5 or 10 years. It seemed to be more about how much blood you can get in a movie as opposed to how jumpy a movie was. Was that something that you guys were pleased about, that Hammer particularly, things like The Woman in Black, it's about what's scary as opposed to what's nasty?
I mean, I think like gory horror films are a necessity in the world as much as action movies are. As much as you don't necessarily you're not necessarily able to connect with the lead characters because it's a very sort of CGI, big explosion or lots of blood and guts, and you know, you can go and watch a film and not have to think about it, you know. But at the same time, I personally enjoy films that leave me kind of wondering if this could happen in my life, and you know, leaves me thinking at the end of a film. And like I said, for me, I personally loved the journey that my character went on, and in fact, all the characters go through. And you know, like I said, I think it allows you to kind of, you're able to relate to said characters and said situations more so than, you know, a film where your arm gets chopped off but you're still running and then you get shot 5 times and then your head comes off, you know. I think,
and they're still breathing. They're still going. That's the weird bit.
I think I think we talked about this earlier, that I think that, you know, the very best genre movies, you know, you might call them horror movies, whatever you want to call them, if you care about the characters, as I think you do in this film, and particularly the interaction between, you know, Jared and Sam's character and Olivia and so forth, it makes people get more emotionally invested in it, so that when it is scary, then it lands much, much better.
It's difficult to talk about your character, Jared, really, isn't it? Because we don't want to give too much away.
I agree. It is difficult to talk about.
They'll keep a secret, Jared.
Jared's like, yeah, I'm not going to talk about it. I'm going to be in the pub if you need me.
But, you know, I do play the bad guy.
No, he doesn't. He's a lovely professor, and I bet if are any of you studying right now? Would you like Jared as your professor?
No.
You're right, Jared. They're not. They're actually physically scared of you.
Yeah.
Jared's wife's
And
over
you
there, and
should be.
even she's going, he's taught me nothing. But I mean, is that something, because obviously, you know, if we could talk about your body of work, sir, and it is a fine body of work. So when roles come to you, particularly something like this, is it because it is something different that you want to get involved with? What is your main attraction to a role like this?
Well,
It wasn't the money, for sure.
you don't know how true that is.
We can
still
cut that
waiting
bit.
to
We
be
can cut
paid.
that bit.
I'm hoping it does well so we can get paid. And they think I'm joking. It was...
Sam's on the end going, Hunger Games, dream on.
That's true, yeah.
yeah.
I don't want to break up a happy movie.
It was that you got to feel a whole load of different things about this character, and that he was at one stage he's the authority and the expert, and then that becomes challenged, and you think that he's a phony, and then actually that his premise is proven true, but then the whole thing starts to go out of control, and you know you got to show a lot of different colors. Often when you know, bad guys in movies, if they're just straightforward bad guys, they're not great parts. But if you get to humanize the character, they're really, really good parts. And they generally are the ones that everybody wants to play, because you get to play with the audience's feelings about your character and take them through a lot of different colors, if you like. So they're really, really good fun to do. And you get to do stuff that you can't do in normal life. It's fantastic.
Like keep a woman trapped in it. Doesn't matter.
It was
Let's not go there.
It was
I
for
wish I
science,
could.
and she was willing.
Sam, can I just point out, Sam's going, I wish I could. There's about 1,000 women in this building that were going, I'll be locked in your room. It's not that kind of movie. It is that kind of movie, but you get the idea. Well, Sam, what is it for you then? Because obviously, and we mentioned this earlier, you're part of two of the biggest kind of franchise movies, if you like, of our time. You know, they are, you know, the Pirates movies and, of course, the Hunger Games movies. So when these roles come your way, is it the meaty, grittier roles that appeal to you? Do those kind of blockbusters allow and pave a way for you to do stuff that you really want to get your teeth into?
If I'm 100% honest, I haven't really thought about it. It's like I've kind of come up with some
Then
sort
you
of...
can lie. Just lie.
Well, but it feels like I have come up with some sort of super plan. But basically, Pirates was an audition like any... I would have literally played a tree in the Snow White movie, before Pirates came along. And I just auditioned like I auditioned for anything, expecting it not to happen, and then got a phone call saying, come to Los Angeles. So it kind of just paved the way for another franchise movie, which was Snow White and the Huntsman, and then another one, Hunger Games. It just, it's just happened. I've not like specifically gone out to find it. But what's great is that, especially with this movie, it's the first sort of intimate movie I'd done, with a small cast and an intimate crew, and, a great production company following behind, and to challenge myself in new ways and do something completely different, is my intention at the moment. Obviously, Hunger Games, we're back doing that again, but there's also a sort of foray of different genres that I have coming out this year, which is quite exciting. But yeah, I'm hugely I can't wait for everyone to sort of see this film and sort of give us their opinions, obviously. So,
you say intimate. It's only intimate because Jared's check is quite big, and that made the rest of the movie quite intimate.
Right.
That's exactly right.
So, I mean, when it comes to roles, and obviously this may be more aimed at you, Jared, because obviously, this wider spectrum of a career. You've worked with Spielberg, you're kind of doing the Man from U.N.C.L.E. series as well that's coming out. There is a fine array and Curious Case of Benjamin Button as well. Does director and production take on a big reason for you picking a role as well? Is it working with new people that's very important to you?
Yeah, you want to work. I mean, there's a bunch of different reasons why to say yes to something, but one of the main reasons is that you want to work with really good people. You want to work with good directors because they are the ones who you're going to hand over your work to, and then they'll rewrite the script for the last time in the editing room. You want to feel you want to be with good actors and in good company, always in good company. So, and again, on this one, our director's standing back there, John Pogue. He was incredibly collaborative and he welcomed all of our ideas. He in that brilliant way that people know how to handle people who are asking for lots of stuff. He would never say no. He would just shove stuff to the side and move on, or take stuff on board and work it into the story or the ideas for scenes and stuff like that. So you want a collaboration like that. So you basically you want to work with good people.
I mean, it's very interesting that because John Pogue, obviously the director we just mentioned, also a rather fine screenwriter. There's some of the stuff that he's written is incredible. If you look through, he's over there, so it's really awkward saying such nice things about him. But he has, his CV is incredible when it comes to screenwriting. So how much, when you say collaboration, how much input are you guys allowed into your character? Or is he going, hang on a minute, have you seen my work? I'm a great screenwriter. Don't touch that. It's perfect the way it is. He doesn't talk like that, by the way, so just bear that in mind.
The truth?
Tell the truth.
Well, I don't think that anyone really likes someone suggesting new stuff because they arrived at their ideas after a lot of thought. But there was quite a big rewrite that went on my character, and that we worked on together. And mostly what it was that I felt that you had to believe the science, you had to believe the experiment. And although nowadays the universities don't have the parapsychology departments, back in the 70s, a lot of universities, big universities all over the world, had parapsychology departments, and it was a legitimate form of experiment. And it was considered on the fringes of science, but it was still a legitimate form. And we wanted to present the experiment through the perspective of the time rather than our own cynical view. And it was mostly to do with that. Wouldn't you say? Or
I think the other thing is, and it's worth telling the audience this, and this happens a lot. I mean, the gestation of this film was not a quick thing. And we acquired the script originally, I guess 5 years ago or longer. And you'll see on the credits a number of different writers, and it goes through a process trying to sort of land it in the way that Jared's talking about to make. We knew there was a terrific idea because it was based on true events and incredible and interesting characters and their dynamic. But it wasn't until John came on board, John Pogue, and then was working in England and transposing it to Oxford in 1974. And then casting, and then Jared and Sam coming on board, and Olivia and so forth, he began to really speak in the way that he talks about. And it's just interesting with movies, you're seeing it now, but it's taken a whole series of events and people's input to get where we are now. And John, absolutely nailed it.
We talked about the fact it's set in 1974. Was that almost feels like a character in the film? The decade, if you like, feels like a character. Was that something that you guys had to go, hang on, what was it like in 1974? Like, you remember 1974 if
I
you
remember,
can.
unfortunately.
No, you don't. God bless you.
I definitely do. I definitely do.
But I mean, I'm guessing back in 1974, the scariest thing was probably decor. And now...
Well, that was actually I was looking forward to that. It was all those wild clothes and everything. It was good fun.
You wanted...
Yeah, I didn't get to wear them. They got to wear them. But I was. That was a great. You could have enormous fun with those sorts of things. I mean, and especially in a film like this where it gets very serious and very heavy, that when you can find lighter notes to put in, which can be in terms of what people are wearing or the music that they're listening to, that we laugh at or we find it amusing, the fashion of 20, 30 years ago, and those are all great little notes to have in something like this.
Please say they were always your first choice, but let's talk a little bit about the casting and how you found them and how you discovered and how you know these were the guys that were right for the Quiet Ones.
Ooh,
On the spot now,
Steady,
mate.
Tiger. Steady, Tiger. Well, okay, there's going to be a lot of Well, actually, no, this is true. I mean, he knows this. He knows this. I'm in a room with my colleague over there, Ben Holden, who produced the movie with us, and shout out for Ben. And we talked about we sort of. Copeland was going to be the focal point, the building block for the casting, and I've known Jared for a long time, and great friend of his and his families and brother Damien and so forth. And we discussed it and said, look, Jared would be terrific for this. There wasn't an open casting on it, and that's the truth. We went straight to Jared, who we thought would just give the whole thing focus and ballast and so forth. He read it and then began a relationship and discussions with John over there. So that started, and then the rest of it, honestly, was open casting. I mean, we got a terrific casting director called Sasha Robertson who came in, and I met you outside doing a roll-up. Oh, you're really. I'm going to do this. I'm going to take the piss now. You're really probably not allowed to do that anymore, are you? No. Having a rollie outside my office.
Clean living Sam.
Yeah. And he walked in, literally walked into our life, and that was it. And then everything else was open casting. Olivia, Rory, Aaron, John was writing in our office at the time, transposing the piece and so forth, and working on it. So it was the normal process, and a very, very, very happy one.
And what was about for you? What was that audition like for you? Walking in, going, "Hang on, I'm going to be part of a horror movie," because it is something slightly different to what you've done before.
It's strange. Do you know what? It's so strange when you audition. In a sense, you don't, because I only had like a few days with the script and before my audition, so I sort of read the script as quickly as I could, and then you try and prepare a character on the knowledge you have, but you're usually in the process of doing something else, and so it's quite limited timing wise. But I think progressively, like as I was lucky enough to have that offer out, I could then start trying to build a character, and again having conversations with John, and as you sort of hear other characters, and I actually had an opportunity to read with Olivia for the character of Harper. So the moment you kind of find the chemistry in the room there and then, you literally meet them 5 seconds before you act together, and then you kind of part ways until you start filming. But it was great for me to be a part of that process, to have been through auditions with a few of the other girls, and Olivia was number one choice. She was incredible, and literally I remember me and John having a conversation afterwards, and he said, "What who do you think?" I was like, "Olivia. Olivia's hands down who I think would be perfect for that part, but also someone who I know that I can work with, and I think there is chemistry there, and I think one thing led to another, obviously, and here we are." But
the other thing I'd say is that we were in a fortunate position. We were financing the picture with our friends traveling picture company over from America, and we didn't have to. We were not dependent like a lot of movies are. We wanted to cast the people we wanted, and that's exactly what happened. So it's not just for the purposes of this and every other interview that you'll hear in the next couple of days. That's exactly what happened.
This is the only interview they'll hear in the next couple of days.
Yeah.
All others are pointless. Olivia, it's not. Olivia is such a pinnacle role, though. Her performance is very much, a lot of the weight of the film is down to her, because if you don't believe her, you don't necessarily believe you guys. So was that a lot of pressure for her? Bearing in mind, she is a relative newcomer in the world. I mean, she's fantastic in things like the Bates Motel. If you've seen the series, she's incredible in it. But how aware of her work were you, and knowing that pressure that was put on her?
I mean, for me, it was literally, we did a chemistry read, and I knew her potential from that, from that one meeting. I mean, the scenes that she had to do during that audition went through every emotion that character had to go through. There was, I think it was 2 or 3 scenes, and you saw the sort of beautiful, innocent side of her there, and then you saw the more powerful and sort of scarier side of her character, and then equally like a loving, scared child. So it was, she had everything down like day one, and so I knew that it was in the safest hands it could be, basically. And even if it was a challenge to her, she sort of grabbed it with both hands and wrestled the bull to the ground. She really handled it very well.
Which is ironically what your character would like to have done to her, from what I gather from the movie. There is a moment in the movie which it looks quite awkward for you. Do you know the moment I mean? Do you want to tell them maybe the awkward moment for you? Because I'm guessing it was more awkward to film it than it was for us to watch it.
I'd say you should just watch the film. I'm definitely not a man who likes to kiss and tell. But no, I know exactly which moment you mean, and I have to admit, yes, it was slightly awkward to be a part of that. But also because from a certain point of that scene, I'm not on camera. I literally stood behind the screen because I didn't want to put her off. But it was fine. It was good fun.
Yeah. The old behind the screen thing. And Jared,
with the peephole.
And Jared, there's a couple of moments for you, you saucy little thing.
Yes.
Lucky little thing, I'd say.
Well, I would say lucky as well, but I didn't. My wife is going to see this at some point. I'd like to go home. Your wife, it's too late. Your wife knows everything.
She's already left. She's already left.
There.
She heard that. She heard that. If there's a divorce lawyer in the room, we'd be grateful.
Unneeded. Thank you.
But again, is that easy to do those parts of a performance? Because there are some, they must be very difficult as an actor that does such deep, meaningful characters. But then there are moments you've got to do things for the sake of the role, and it's awkward.
I don't know where you're going with this.
You know where I'm going. There's a tree, there's you, and there's a lady.
Right.
There wasn't a menage a trois by any means.
The tree had...
With the tree.
It's the tree from Lord of the Rings. It comes out. Doesn't matter. Can we change the subject?
At your own suggestion.
I know. It's just because I dreamt about the tree just for a second there.
You wished you were the tree.
Who doesn't love a good leaf?
Normally they're pretty awkward to do those scenes, but you just hope that the director will say cut early enough, which he would toy with us in the way that all good directors do. Some level, wouldn't you say that all directors are sort of sadists in some part of them? Wouldn't you agree with that? He's not admitting.
He's backed away.
He wrote this script,
Yeah,
so
he wrote
his
that in.
dreams brought to life, basically.
And I think there's probably a director's cut where the tree has a whole bigger part. That came out wrong. I had the pleasure once of talking to Christopher Lee, and he said to me that sometimes what's the scariest through the lens is actually the funniest other side.
Yes.
He said, it's almost
absolutely.
hilarious to be part of, but when you see it through the lens, it's a very different feeling. What was that moment for each of you?
I think I could say without question it was the scene where did we mind about giving stuff away or not? I won't
Lady
say.
there just went, yes, Jared.
Well, there's a scene later on, late in the movie, where we all had to act like complete and utter maniacs, and it did make the cut. I've seen it, mate. It was just fantastic fun because in those moments you can overact your heart out. There is no such thing as too much or too big. They're really, really, really good fun to do. Wouldn't you say?
I think I know. Yeah, it got tough. The toughest thing that I found, but also the funniest thing that I found personally, was when we were, in the midst of the experiment. And again, I won't give too much away. But we needed some sound effects.
Oh, that was fantastic.
We, obviously on a horror film, you have to imagine that we don't have the music played for it. It's not like a keyboardist by the side of the and we also didn't have the real sound effects of like something that may or may not have been in the room. However, we did have a very, very an amazing sort of vocalist in our director who decided that he was going to voice some of the sound effects. And bless him, he started losing his voice on said day. So you hear this screech, scrape. So I think the fact that we were all trying our hardest, not to laugh at each other's scared faces for a good 5 hours, but like to try not to giggle and to act scared to a man who, bless him, tried his hardest to get us scared into that position. It was very funny. It was very, very funny.
You do feel really ridiculous. And you have to embrace that part of it, and the fact that you're making a complete and utter arse out of yourself, and the only sort of safety you has is that you look across the room and you see the other person feels exactly the same way.
Was there any point? We spoke to many actors that get deep into the role, and they do that thing where they go, "Well, we won't hang out together off set, and I'm the teacher, you're the pupil." Was that the same? Did you treat each other that
I was
way?
A complete and utter arsehole the whole time.
I hate him now.
We were it was very low budget, so we created like bunk beds and we had them in little bunks together in one room. So Sam was there and Jared, and then we just...
There was a fight to who got the top bunk.
Who got the top bunk.
And I won. But actually, I will say that what was amazing about my character is that he's the cameraman throughout the experiment, and what was great, obviously wasn't on camera for some of it, so I was behind camera feeding lines to the actors, but John would constantly sort of ask my opinion on is this how you'd shoot the film. They also allowed me a great opportunity to actually film some of the takes, so I'd get so the cinematographer could sit and watch exactly every movement that I had, so he'd know what to react to and what he'd shoot and where he'd shoot. So obviously when the pretty ladies were on, how if I'd check them out and etc. etc. But I mean, John's sort of collaborative nature really allowed me to kind of get more involved behind the camera as much as I was in front of the camera. So I mean, a hugely sort of eye-opening experience for me, and something that he's made me realise that I kind of want to pursue eventually.
He
and
wants to direct.
I'm saying when I'm like 90 or something.
He wants to direct, not another one.
Yeah.
So basically, Sam, you're using this interview to pitch your own career.
Anyone got any good scripts?
As long as he stars in it. He's got to act it. He's got to act it as well.
See, that's one thing I couldn't do. If I did end up directing, I could never direct myself. So I think, it's a bit...
You say that now.
We have ways of making you do it.
I'd be perfect. I'm going to write the script, act in it, star in it.
Now you're talking.
Produce it and direct.
You move the decimal point on Jared's check and he'll do all of it. That's all I'm saying. We're going to open it up to these guys in a second, but one thing before we do, I wonder if we could just ask you, what is it about the horror genre, or more the supernatural genre, for lack of a better word? I don't know how you would describe these movies now, that we love so much, because we have taken, like we said earlier, a real love towards these type of movies now, and particularly with the Hammer films. They're not gory. They're not.
No.
They're not,
well, listen. I think I've gone on record since we bought Hammer, and it'd been this amazing company, this production company that started sort of in the 30s, then in the 50s. For 20, 30 years, it sort of was synonymous with Gothic, what's called Gothic horror, but it was never gory. And we had this idea that what would happen is that if we brought Hammer back, it wouldn't be about body count. It wouldn't be what they call pornography or torture porn. It would be character-driven. It would be story-driven. It would be screenplays that would attract great actors, great directors that we had on this film and others. So that's really what it is. And I said to you earlier, I think that if the stories are compelling and if the characters are compelling and people care about these people that Sam and Jared and others are playing, then I think that we've got a great chance of success.
I was going to say, one of the beautiful things about this film is we do feel like Sam is almost, you're the voice of the audience. We're going on the journey with you, and we feel for you, alongside the professor when you're being you. I don't want to give anything away.
Just crack him over the head with that chair stool.
Just quickly, we're going to open it up to you guys. I'm sure you have 1,000 questions, but just very quickly, favourite horror movie or favourite scary movie of all time?
of all time. Well, I personally think the Blair Witch Project really connected with me because it was the first of its kind, you know, told through the eyes of the actual actors or the characters. And I think I just remember leaving that and being left like emotionally, physically, and mentally scarred, like thinking that was going to happen to me. Every time I walked through the woods, I was like, oh my God, like I see twigs like coincidentally like lying on the floor, and I'm not, they're going to like turn into some sort of witch character. I don't know. I didn't want to camp for a long, long time.
And an element of seasickness.
That could be taken so wrong. I was going to say.
Now I love camping.
Now he loves camping.
Please don't Google Sam Camp. Jared.
Sam Camp. That sounds great. Yeah. Summer camp.
And if Sam Camp does exist, don't send your kids there. Jared, what about for you?
God, I mean, I remember seeing Night of the Living Dead when I was a kid. Way too young. I was 8. I couldn't sleep for probably a year afterwards. I remember The Others. I remember The Others was great. Yeah. The Changeling. That was a fantastic. The one with George C. Scott. Yeah. Let's see. Jaws for me was a horror movie. I mean, for me, the better horror movies lean more towards suspense rather than trying to shock you with something awful. You know, I don't like that violence porn or torture porn. I can't watch it. So, and stuff that exists within your mind that you live with afterwards, and you turn it over in your mind and try and figure it out as why did it upset me. Those have much greater effect than something where you just lop people's heads off or stuff like that.
Well, on the assumption you don't mean any film that we are talking about today or we've made. So
available now on DVD.
Available now on DVD, exactly. No, I think you know, well, I agree with everything what you said, Jared said about the type of film. So for me, The Devil Rides Out, Dennis Wheatley, I thought that really spooked me as a sort of teenager. And then The Shining, you know, Rosemary's Baby. Yeah. I mean, Jaws. I agree with you, the best monster movie ever made, Jaws. You know, so yeah.
Night of the Demon.
Night of the Demon, excellent. Plague of the Zombies, that's another cracker. Yeah. I could go on.
Yeah.
Lots of them.
We have so many questions from you guys, I'm sure. We have microphones passing around. Does any of you have a question? Should we go to this lovely lady at the front there?
Okay, as a sort of psych major, not to be like pretentious or anything, but I was wondering for the whole panel, did you study any of the sort of real life cases like Zimbardo's prison experiment or Stanley Milgram's experiment or anything like that?
Yeah, you're talking another language. I personally haven't heard of any of those, but I have seen a fair few documentaries about like parents who believe their kids are possessed, and like or kids that have seen. For some reason, I watch a lot of documentaries about kids. I've just realised. But
don't Google that either.
No, they go to Sam Camp. But no, like it's like kids who believe they can see the future or like, you know, that sort of stuff. But I'm not too overly familiar with a lot of like the history into psychology. Is that what psych's short for?
We did discuss a lot of those experiments. I discussed them with John, because there's a section of the story where you're supposed to think that maybe the real experiment is being done on those guys who are allowing this to carry on, and that you're supposed, maybe what you're watching is the Stanford experiment or something like that. So yeah, we talked about those a lot because it was an important little small passage that you pass through in the story of what you think you're watching.
And for you, Simon?
I mean, Jared just answered it, and it's a very good question. And I'd like to know all those other experiments, because we might make those into movies as well. So just give us a note afterwards. Okay?
You're hired.
You're hired.
But it's also something I am interested in. I have a lot of friends who have had supernatural experiences with ghosts or whatever, and I always love to hear those stories. I think it's hugely, like, it's very interesting, and unfortunately it's something I've never experienced personally, but like, I think it's interesting hearing someone's, you know, personal experiences. I think it's always hugely, I'll say interesting once more, interesting.
My question is for Sam. I wanted to know if you had any similarities with your character, Brian. Yes
and no. We look kind of similar. Other than that, no, not really. No, but I mean, he is curious. He's also, to begin with, a non-believer, which is something that, again, I would sort of say that I am going through. Like, I'm a non-believer, but, you know, I'm curious about what is out there, what could potentially be. He's also, you know, I'd consider him like quite a reserved guy, and as much as you may not believe it, I believe that I am quite shy and quite quiet.
You're right, we don't.
I'm one of the quiet ones. And yeah, it's. I think curiosity is his, you know, default. And
He also wants to be a director.
yes, which you know, there's that. He taught me a lot. But yeah, I think he's easily influenced as well, and I think that's something that I'm a sheep, I would say. I very rarely can make my own decisions. Anytime I get asked, do you want this or that? I don't know, what do you think? You know, and I think he's quite similar in that sense. But as he sort of goes through this journey, he definitely starts to have a voice and is able to stand up to said bad guys.
And same character, they both hate me.
No.
And Simon, what did you just say? I'm just saying, Simon whispered to me they both have bad haircuts, but I mean, woof!
Really?
I can speak from experience. I don't have any.
You said that?
But
I'm in
yes.
so much trouble with Simon
Thanks,
after this.
Simon.
Who has
Fucking
another
line
question? Let's go to this lady here, who's just
Messi,
basically
sorry.
a massive advert for Apple. Look at you. Hi, and my question comes from my iPad.
That's at home, sorry.
Of course it is.
Just a question to the actors. Were you intimidated with the history of Hammer and the actors that have been before?
No, I think that you feel confident that you're in the hands of people who know how the story they want to tell, how they want to tell it, how they want to promote that idea. And no, I think that was a great comfort, you know.
And I'd have to totally agree.
Check in the post, boys.
I feel hugely embraced. I think, as Jared mentioned earlier, when you have the opportunity to work with great people and a great production company behind you, and especially with a great name like Hammer, I'm not saying the name itself is great, but you know what I mean, a great reputation that Hammer has. I definitely felt comfort in, you know, the films they brought out recently as well. Women in Black, Let Me In. They're films that I enjoyed for very, very different reasons. And you know, as we all mentioned earlier, I think you kind of want to have a character that you can believe, and a very character-driven piece. And I think they are the kings of that, really, especially within this genre. So I think we felt very lucky to have the opportunity to work together, really.
Thanks, guys.
Anytime.
Well, that's true.
Their money for the sequel, which Sam's directing, has just gone up. Let's go further at the
What a
back, because
call.
there's some people that have been waiting over there. Can we get the microphone to that lady over there? Let's pass it along. There we go. We've got time for a couple more questions. Hello there. What's your question?
This question is to the actors, and I've heard from some actors, well, not personally, but on interviews, that they don't watch the final product of the movie. Do you guys watch the final movie or not?
I've seen it 5 times so far, so yes.
I've seen it just the once, and I sat in a screening room in Los Angeles, basically a cinema on my own in pitch black. And I have to say, even though I was part of the filming process and I'd read the script and we'd filmed it and I knew exactly what was going to happen, I still jumped out of my seat like a lot. And despite the fact I knew when the scares were coming, sometimes they'd come when you didn't expect them, which is always good. You know, you're on the edge of your seat for the entire film. So I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you get the same experience.
Can I just say as well, they gave me a screening of the movie earlier this week, and they did that to me. I was pretty much on my own. But the difference was they all left the building. And it's not even a joke. They all left the building, and it was 3 or 4 floors down in the basement where the... And I came out going, I don't know where anyone is. I have never been so embarrassed to be nervous and to be clinging on to a cleaner. We're dating, and it doesn't matter, but it's sort of...
You, her, and the tree.
That's a DVD that won't be available. Let's get our final question. We are running out of time. Should we go back down the front to this lady? Which one, Simon?
I couldn't possibly.
Pick one,
Let
Simon.
them both go. Let them both go.
Just both.
You lot are so nice.
Both of you. Yeah.
To Sam, you once said in an interview that you don't really watch much classic films. With working with like Hammer have you ever watched any like the classic films since then?
I can't lie.
Brilliant. Let's move on to the next
Now
question.
you regret saying let them both
I'll
go.
be honest, no, it's something that I'm trying to catch
Busted,
up on.
busted.
But no, I mean, it's one of those things that I knew of Hammer Horror before, and I probably have seen them. I just don't know exactly what films you guys have produced. But you know, as a kid, I didn't watch much films. I was just playing football. I was just playing football. That's all I had.
There's a directing. His directing career has just taken. His directing career has just taken a massive dive.
Do you guys know I can sing?
News just in, Sam's not in the sequel. That's
But I'm still directing.
That's an exclusive right there.
Next.
Let's go to this lady, the last one. Hello, thank you so much.
Sorry,
What
it's
is your
not going to be a
question?
great question. But, so I was just going to say, do you guys have any dream roles or something you'd like to produce in the future? And also, are you going to be at the premiere?
I hope so. It's their
For the
movie.
Yeah, I know. I just want to check that you guys.
So if
No,
they're
I'm
not at the
not.
premiere, it's going to be really
I'm not.
awkward.
No,
I'm
I
going
wouldn't
home
bother,
tonight.
Fabi. I'm not going to bother. So, yeah, we're all going to be there,
Good.
as is John and my colleagues Ben over there, and the Travelling Picture Company, and Mark and all our team. Everyone's going to be there. It's going to be a great night, and I couldn't possibly tell you what's going to happen next. It's a secret, but can I? The Abominable Snowman is what we're going to do. The Abominable Snowman.
It's tough to answer in the sense that there's so much that I'd like to achieve as an actor, and I think so many people I'd love to work with. And the thing is, I read script by script as opposed to like reading a story or even any character I've played before. I kind of want to do something new and challenge myself in different ways. I never saw myself being here 4 years at a drama school, and therefore, you know, who knows where I'll be in 5 years. But I'd like to kind of keep my options open as opposed to have a goal that I'm blatantly going to fail at some point. I like to have low expectations, and everything that happens is a bonus, really. So, yeah.
Yes, we'll definitely be at the premiere.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yes, I'll be there.
Dream role, Ozzy Osbourne.
How about Hercules?
I could play maybe the guy who cuts Hercules' hair, but I don't think I could play Hercules.
Samson.
Not unless with a lot of CGI.
I'll be honest with you, we'd probably all go and see both of those movies, wouldn't we? I think we would. Ladies and gentlemen, we have run out of time, but thank you genuinely so much for coming. The premiere
Thanks,
is tomorrow
guys.
night in London's
Yep.
Leicester Square, so please, if you want
Pop
to come down
along.
and say hello, they have confirmed they will be there, so if they're not, you can officially sue. And the movie is genuinely fantastic. You are going to love it. It's out on April the 10th, and I'm sure you've probably already pre-booked your tickets. Ladies and gentlemen, if you will, please help thanking me. Sam Claflin, Jared Harris, and the producer, Mr. Simon Oakes.
Thank you very
you
much
Thanks for
so
coming,
much.
guys. Thanks, guys. Thank you.